Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'd like to do is show you how to write an equation in slope-intercept form when given a point that the line goes through as well as the slope. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this. We could use slope-intercept form from the start, or we could also use point-slope form. And we like to use point-slope form when we're given a point and a slope, which for all of these problems we are given. But I'm going to show both ways so you have an idea. And some students like to learn one way over the other, so I'll make sure I present both of them. However, in the first example, though, there's a couple things that I notice. Now, remember, if we're going to write this in slope-intercept form, we want to have it in the form y equals mx plus b. Well, remember, m represents the slope, which is the ratio of the change in the y-coordinates over the change in the x-coordinates between any 2 points on the line. And b represents the y-intercept, where the graph crosses the y-axis. Now, you can see we have 4 is going to be our slope. So I can quickly plug that in. That's pretty simple, right? OK, so now we need to determine what the y-intercept is. Now, to go ahead and do that, one thing we notice, though, is when I look at my point, I notice that my coordinate point is an x and a y. And I notice that my x is 0. And if you look at a graph, right, if here's your x-axis, here's your y-axis, when x is equal to 0, you have a point on the y-axis, right? So when x is equal to 0, any point that x is equal to 0 is on the y-axis. So therefore, this point is the y-intercept. That means the value of the y-intercept is at -2. So we can say that b is equivalent to -2. So it'd be y equals 4x plus a -2. Or, to simply write our answer, it'd be y equals 4x minus 2. And that's going to be our final answer. So whenever you're given a point with 0 as the x-coordinate, that's telling you they're giving you the y-intercept. So that one's fairly simple, OK? So for the next example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do it just in slope-intercept form. We're just going to keep slope-intercept form. I'll introduce point-slope form in just a second. So in this case, again, if you're just kind of following my mode here, or my thought, we have y equals mx plus b. And I always like to write that down first. If that's what they're asking us to write it in, then that's what I'm going to write it in. I see that I have m is -3. So I write y equals -3 x plus b. Now, we're given a point. Unlike that example, we were given they automatically gave us the point 0, -2. So they gave us the y-intercept. Here, this is not the y-intercept because x is +3, right? That point is like 1, 2, 3, -1. That's like over there. That's not on the y-intercept. We need to find where the graph crosses the y-axis. However, when they give us this point, just like I did over there, that point represents an x and a y coordinate. And the slope-intercept form, when we talk about m represents slope, b represents y-intercept, x and y, what do they represent? Well, they represent any point that lies on the line. So if I'm telling you a point lies on the line, 3, -1, I can plug those points in for x and for y. Then, so that's what I'll go ahead and do. So I'll plug -1 in for y equals -3. And then I'll plug in 3 in for x, and then plus b. OK? So now you can see that the only thing I still don't know, which I need to solve for, is b. So I go ahead and now simplify my problem. So I have -1 equals -9 plus b. Add 9 to both sides to solve for b. And I get 8 equals b. So now I know what b is. And I already know what m is. Now I just need to plug that in for b. So my final answer is y equals -3x plus 8. OK? So let's go ahead and use that method one more time, because I think it's fairly simple, and it kind of goes through. I'll kind of work through it a little bit differently, or a little bit faster. However, we do have some fractions, but that's perfectly fine. So again, I do like using this. So we write y equals mx plus b. In this case, we have our m is y equals a -4/7. So I do -4/7 x plus b. Then I'm now going to plug in 7 in for x and -3 in for y. So I do 7 equals -4/7. Oops, that's supposed to be y. -3 in for y, right? And then times 7, and then plus b. OK, well, 7 times -4/7, you can rewrite that as a fraction So I'll do that over 1. Then the 7 in the numerator, 7 in the denominator, divide to 1. So I'm left with a negative 4 over 1. So I have negative 3 equals negative 4 plus b. Then I simply just add 4 to both sides. And therefore, I get 1 equals b. So now I know what b is. I already know what m is, right? So now they tell me b equals 1. So now I can just write the equation. And my equation is going to be y equals negative 4/7 x plus 1. Ta-da! All right, so now the last one. The last thing we're going to use is going to point slope form. And the way that point slope form works is it's very helpful when you have a point and a slope. And here's why. Basically, the slope form looks like this. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Now, if you had 2 points, we would label the y and the y1s a little bit differently. We'd do y2, y1, x2, y1. But now, basically, we only have one set of points. So what I'm going to do is y and x represent every single point on the line, where y1 and x1 are going to represent the points that I am given. Then all we simply do is plug in our points. So plug in the values that we have, and then simplify. So I have y minus y1, which is negative 5, equals m, which is negative 1/3, times x minus x1, which is 9. OK, so now we know that y minus a negative is going to be y plus 5 equals, then I have to apply distributive property over here. So in doing that, I get negative 1/3 x, and then negative 1/3 times negative 9 is going to be a positive 3. Then I just solve for y. So I subtract 5, and my final answer is y equals negative 1/3 x minus 2. OK? So either way works. You know, if you have this formula, you just need to make sure you know it, and you plug it in. And it's really simple as this. This kind of takes plugging in the values and then solving for b and then plugging it back in. Either way works for you. The best is obviously to have 0 as your x coordinate for your point. Then you can just plug everything in. But whichever way works and whichever way makes sense for you, I would go ahead and work with that. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you write the equation in slope-intercept form when given a point and a slope. Thanks.